What if the man who saved your life was the same man who destroyed it? Emily thought she found love, wealth, and peace until a hidden truth surfaced. A silver lighter, a confession, a past that refused to stay buried. Would you stay silent for love or expose the man who gave you everything? Emily's childhood ended the night the fire came. She was 7, curled up beside her mother in their small apartment in Agege. Her father had just returned from his late-night shift at the bakery, smelling of flour and charcoal. Her mother hummed a lullaby as she braided Emily's hair on the mat. The air was warm, filled with the scent of beans and fried plantain from dinner, the kind of comfort only a loving home could give. Then the lights flickered. A loud bang followed. Flames swallowed the hallway in seconds. Her father's voice shouted her name, desperate, broken, before it was silenced by the roaring fire. Emily didn't remember how she got outside, only that the heat burned her legs, that her mother screamed behind her, and that someone, some man, dragged her out into the street. Her nightdress was torn, her arms were shaking, and the last thing she saw before blacking out was a silver lighter falling to the ground. She woke up 2 days later in a government hospital, wrapped in bandages, orphaned. Her uncle came for her, a quiet man with tired eyes and calloused hands. He didn't hug her. He just nodded and said, "Let's go." His house was nothing like her parents'. It smelled of dust and sweat. There was no humming, no gentle hands, just silence, barking orders, and an aunt who made it clear she was a burden. "You eat like you own this place," she would snap. "You better start earning your keep." Emily became the invisible girl, washing plates before dawn, cleaning floors before school, never allowed to cry too loudly or smile too long. Her cousins called her Ash Girl behind her back, but she kept quiet. She held on to the memory of her mother's voice, her father's laughter, the warmth of home before it turned to smoke. No one ever asked her what she saw that night. No one cared. But Emily remembered. She remembered the fire, and she remembered the silver lighter, the one with the initials she was too young to understand, until years later, when she saw it again. Emily was 22 the first time she met Richard. It was a hot Tuesday afternoon, and the power had gone out again at St. Luke's private hospital. Sweat clung to her back as she sat behind the dusty reception desk, fanning herself with an old file. Her faded white blouse stuck to her skin. Her shoes were worn, and her stomach rumbled quietly. She hadn't eaten since morning. She was used to being overlooked. Patients barely glanced at her. Nurses barked instructions. Doctors walked past her like she was part of the furniture. Then he walked in. Tall, confident, with skin the color of polished mahogany and a crisp navy blue caftan that looked expensive without trying. His cologne reached her before his voice did, something subtle but bold. He leaned slightly over the desk, smiled gently, and said, "I'm here to settle a patient's bill." His name was Richard Morgan. Emily blinked, struggling to speak. Most rich men who visited came with bodyguards or arrogance, but this one came with quiet grace. She processed the payment, handed him the receipt, and expected him to walk away. But he didn't. "You look tired," he said softly. "Have you had lunch?" She smiled awkwardly. "Not yet." The next day he came again, this time with a sandwich and malt, and the day after that, with jollof rice and a soft, warm smile that melted her defenses. He didn't ask questions about her past. He didn't push. He just saw her. And for the first time in years, Emily felt visible, seen, heard. He listened when she talked about her dreams, her small business ideas, her worries about her younger cousin's school fees. He made her laugh. He made her forget for a moment that life had once been cruel. Weeks turned to months, and the visits continued. By the time Richard asked her to dinner, Emily's heart was already halfway in his hands. She had no idea that the same hands once held the fire that stole her childhood. Not yet, but fate has a cruel sense of humor, and love sometimes comes wearing the enemy's smile. Richard moved fast, but never in a way that felt rushed. Within 4 months, he met Emily's uncle, bringing gifts no one expected. A new generator, a bag of rice, a brown envelope stuffed with cash, handed discreetly with the words, "Just to appreciate you for raising her." Her aunt, who once spat when Emily walked into the room, suddenly served her food with a forced smile. The cousins stopped calling her Ash Girl. Even the neighbors began whispering her name with a kind of envy she'd never known before. Emily couldn't believe it. Was this what being loved felt like? Then came the biggest surprise. He relocated her family to a better apartment in Yaba. 2 bedrooms, a real gas cooker, running water. Her aunt cried tears of gratitude. Her uncle nodded silently, his eyes never meeting Emily's. At night, Richard would call her, his voice gentle and steady. "Are you happy?" "Yes," she'd whisper, curling up on her new mattress, blinking at the ceiling fan spinning above her. "I've never been this happy." He invited her to meet his friends, well-dressed men in suits, classy women with perfect nails and laughter that filled lounges in Ikoyi. Emily always felt slightly out of place, but Richard held her hand tightly and whispered, "You belong here now." One weekend, they took a trip to Ibadan, just the 2 of them. He had rented out a cabin near a waterfall. That night, under the stars, he looked at her and said, "Marry me." Emily gasped. "Are you serious?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a simple diamond ring. "I've never been more serious about anything in my life," she cried. Not because of the ring, or the view, or the luxury. She cried because for the first time, someone had chosen her. Not out of pity, not out of obligation, but out of love. Or so she thought. Because what she didn't know, what she couldn't yet imagine, was that Richard wasn't just giving her a new life. He was burying the truth beneath it, and she was walking into it with eyes wide shut. Marriage to Richard was like stepping into a dream she never prayed for because it felt too far out of reach. The mansion he brought her to was in Lekki. Tall gates, marbled floors, chandeliers that looked like something out of a foreign film. Staff bowed when she passed. Her wardrobe filled with soft silks, perfumes she couldn't pronounce, and shoes in colors she never imagined owning. Her past felt miles away. Her pain, safely hidden behind cream walls and luxury linen. Richard was thoughtful, rarely raised his voice. He traveled a lot, but he never failed to call, to check in, to say, "I miss you." For 3 years, everything was perfect, until it wasn't. One rainy evening, while searching for her missing phone charger, Emily wandered into his home office, a place he rarely let her enter. The room was neat, like everything else he touched. Books lined the shelves, files were stacked precisely. But something odd caught her eye. An old wooden box tucked behind a row of real estate folders. It was scratched, worn at the edges, locked. She stared at it. She should have left it alone. But curiosity has a voice, and that voice was loud that day. After 20 minutes of searching, she found a tiny key hidden behind a dusty book titled Risk and Reward. Her hands trembled as she unlocked the box. Inside were old photographs, a few property documents, and then a silver lighter. She froze. Her breath caught in her throat. Her fingers hovered over it, unwilling to touch. It was the same shape, same engraving, RM, the exact one she'd seen in her nightmares, the one that had fallen to the ground the night her parents died. Suddenly, the room felt colder. Her pulse roared in her ears. She dug deeper into the box, heart pounding. At the very bottom, folded neatly, was a stained document, a confession. She read it once, twice, her vision blurring with each line, and then she dropped it like it burned. The man she had married was the same man who lit the fire that killed her parents, and she had no idea who she was living with anymore. Emily couldn't sleep that night. She sat on the edge of their bed, staring into the dark, the confession still replaying in her mind like a broken record. Her hands were cold. Her body felt like it no longer belonged to her. She could hear Richard snoring gently beside her, breathing peacefully, like a man with no secrets. But she knew now. He was the secret. By morning, she had read the confession 3 more times. The words never changed. "We were paid to burn the property. The family was supposed to be out. I lit the fire. I saw the girl. I panicked. I ran." R.M. Richard Morgan. Her husband. Her savior. Her destroyer. The room around her began to shift. Every gift he'd ever given her now felt like payment for silence. Every kiss, a cover-up. Every night they made love, an erasure of what he had taken from her. And yet, he made her tea that morning, just like always, served it with sliced bananas and toast, kissed her forehead before heading to a board meeting. "Don't forget your lunch plans," he said with a smile. Emily smiled back. It terrified her. How easy it was to pretend. She didn't scream. She didn't confront him. Instead, she opened her diary and wrote, "I married the man who burned my world to the ground. For days, she drifted through life like a ghost. She went to her boutique, greeted her staff, took photos for the store's Instagram, and returned home like nothing had changed. But inside, she was unraveling. She began to study Richard, how he spoke, how he avoided certain topics, the way he changed the subject every time she mentioned her parents. Had he known who she was when he first met her? Or was all of this a cruel twist of fate? Emily didn't know what was more painful, that he destroyed her life once, or that she let him back in and called it love. She didn't speak of it to anyone, not yet. But she was watching him now, with eyes wide open. 2 weeks passed before Emily found the strength to confront her uncle. She traveled alone to the Yaba flat, where her new life had begun, and now where her illusions had come to die. The sitting room was dimly lit, the ceiling fan spinning lazily overhead. Her uncle sat on a plastic chair, reading a newspaper, the same one he had read 1,000 times before, more out of habit than curiosity. She stood quietly at the door, watching him. The man who took her in after the fire. The man who had once turned his back when she needed answers. He looked up, surprised. "Emily? You didn't call?" She cut him off with a folder. Inside it, a copy of the confession. His face turned pale. "Where did you get this?" he asked, voice cracking. "You knew, didn't you?" she said softly. Too softly. He didn't deny it. Instead, he exhaled slowly, eyes clouded with a shame he no longer had the strength to hide. "I found out years later," he whispered, "when he came back." Emily's fingers clenched. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I was going to," he murmured, "but he came with money, said he was sorry, said he never meant to hurt anyone. He begged me not to tell you. He said he wanted to make it right." Emily's voice trembled. "So you sold me a second time." He looked at her then, really looked at her. His eyes were glassy. "I thought, maybe if you were happy, it wouldn't matter anymore. You were always so broken, Emily. I just wanted it to go away." She took a step back, her chest tightening. "So you gave me to the man who murdered my parents and called it kindness?" He didn't answer. He didn't have to. She walked out without another word. Outside, the street was noisy with vendors and okadas, life moving on like nothing had changed. But inside her, something had snapped. The truth had scorched whatever peace was left. And now, Emily didn't just carry grief. She carried fire. Their 3rd wedding anniversary arrived like a well-decorated lie. Richard planned a rooftop dinner at their mansion. White roses, candlelight, soft violin music floating through the warm Lagos night air. The city lights shimmered beneath them, and the stars seemed to nod in approval. Everything looked perfect. Except Emily. She wore a silk gown he bought from Paris, her face carefully made up, her smile delicate and practiced. Inside, she was a woman standing on broken glass, holding a secret that threatened to tear everything apart. Richard raised a glass to toast. "To the best decision I ever made," he said, locking eyes with her. "You changed my life, Emily." She nodded slowly, her throat dry. "And you changed mine." He reached across the table, gently caressing her hand. "I've never known peace until you." Emily stared at his hand. The same hand that once struck a match, that lit the fire that orphaned her, that had pulled her from the ashes, and later offered her a ring. Her heart ached, not just from pain, but from the weight of her silence. She had power now. The confession, the lighter, the knowledge. She could destroy him, expose the truth, watch the world strip away the empire he built on guilt and shadows. She could bring justice to her parents, to the little girl who lost everything. But what would that make her? Would justice give her peace? Or would it simply leave her empty again, poor again, alone again? She looked at him, this man who ruined her past, and then wrapped himself around her future. And suddenly, revenge didn't feel loud anymore. It felt quiet, calculated. She smiled and leaned in. "Happy anniversary, Richard." They kissed under the stars, and the city roared beneath them, unaware that a storm was quietly rising. Emily wouldn't scream. She wouldn't warn. But she would remember, every day, every smile, every lie. Because one day, the truth would burn again. And when it did, she wouldn't be the girl running from the flames. She would be the woman holding the match. The end. If you were in Emily's shoes, would you choose revenge or keep the secret? Let's talk in the comments. I want to hear your thoughts, and please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. See you in the next time. Thanks for watching.